Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I bring you an interview from last fall with actor Carter Glade. Carter's best known for starring as the lead of Jack in Her Boyfriend's Deadly Secret, which aired last October on Lifetime. We chatted just as that was releasing, and as Carter was gearing up for the release of his role in season 6 of Better Call Saul, which airs this spring. Carter's a huge advocate for mental health and utilizes his platform to spread information and awareness on the topic. So we discussed his advocacy, what acting has meant to him, growing up overseas in Germany as well as in the States, and much more. It's a fun interview, and I'm glad to finally bring it to you. Hey, Carter.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. Thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it as well.
So, you, of course, are going to be seen in Her Boyfriend's Deadly Secret, which carries on Lifetime's traditions of absolutely great titles for movies. I always think these things always sound like just such delicious tea cozy murder mystery fun. And that's going to be out on October 15th at 8, 7 Central on Lifetime. Can you talk a little bit about getting that role and what it was like on set to be Jack in something that I mean I have no idea what the plot is, but I'm gonna assume somebody dies, and then we're gonna have to figure it out. Can you talk a little bit about getting the role and what it was like?
Yeah, of course. So we actually shot this film back in November, December of 2020, so the thickness of COVID. And kind of gearing up for it, I got to collaborate with Brooke, the director, a couple weeks in pre-production. And since it was COVID, we did a bunch of table reads through Zoom, which was really interesting. So a hefty amount of all of our characters in the plot, our chemistry comes from Zoom, which is really interesting. But while we were shooting it on set, we were in different zones throughout the shoot. So honestly, the tough part of it all was being able to, I guess, get that chemistry right before we went onto a hot set and started filming. But just everyone that was attached to the project has been, in several films and TV shows for so long. So kind of the experience of it all was there. And it was a blast in a sense of playing Jack McAllister. This kid he comes from a very powerful, wealthy family. His dad is the CEO of McAllister Global Communications. So kind of walking around school, always carrying that name was tough for him. So throughout the story, there's a bunch of incidents where a lot of his insecurities come out. And when you have a lot of insecurities come out from a kid who has a family name and it comes from a privileged place, it brings out some rage and some other emotions. So just being able to play around with that and dive into those character shoes and see how he would take those experiences was something that really, it was fun. It was a really good time.
Do you think having that prep time separate, kind of off by yourself, and then you join up on Zoom, do you feel that leaned in or helped you lean in more to figuring out your character, or is this something that you do as your normal process for each role?
That's actually a great question. I think kind of the isolation of COVID, it gave me so much time to work with this guy because everything was remote and I spent a lot of time with myself. So in a sense, yeah, I think it prepared me better to get into Jack's shoes instead of being around people a lot and that way,
And in terms of, I'm sure it had to be a little bit stressful to do this prep on Zoom and feel like you're getting it right, but maybe be worried a little bit that you're going to get to set and discover that, oh no, we've got to redo this. Chemistry doesn't work right there. Was there anything that you noted that you did on set, or once you all got to the hot set, that you did to kind of make sure that it all clicked, meeting face to face, maybe some of you for the first time?
Yeah, that's pretty funny you say that. Yeah, there was definitely a couple instances. I can't say too much just because the film hasn't come out yet. It comes out next Friday. But what I can say is there were some scenes where some physicality was involved. And since we were doing everything through Zoom, we could never really meet up. So once we did get onto that hot set, it was it was tough. We kind of had to do it right there in the moment and make the best of it. It was almost like an improv, dancing with the camera. So yeah, that was really interesting to do it that way for the first time, but overall great experience one. Yeah.
And you've got, I think your childhood story is really interesting as well. Bouncing back and forth between Germany and the States. I grew up in rural South with people, plenty of people I knew who had never left my county and had no intention of it, and so I think the only people I really met who traveled when I was a kid were usually military brat, being bounced around like that, and so I've always found it interesting as I've grown up to realize how different the world was from my impression of it as a kid. That other countries are, that Germany is a completely functional country with modern conveniences and everything we've got. And, when you're a little kid, you kind of get this impression that, this is where we are. This is how the world is. And then there's these other places with dragons in the maps and shit. I don't know. What was it like growing up fluent in two languages? Do you feel like that gave you a little bit different take on life growing up than your peers, maybe?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Honestly, in Germany, in Leipzig, I lived there for maybe 4.5 years, and then in München for 8 years. But over in Leipzig, I was raised literally half a mile from a nude beach, and the whole sexuality culture over there was completely different. In middle school, kids were drinking beers, smoking cigarettes in hallways, and it was just a completely different environment, atmosphere, and a sense of culture. And then coming over to the States in high school, obviously the drinking age goes from 16 to 21, which was a really interesting kind of time for me because for all of us, drinking was just such a norm over there. It was extremely, it was just such a norm. And then coming over here, there was just so many more, how can I put this? There are so many more limits to stuff that you could do and ways the culture was, especially down in the South. So transforming over from Germany to the States was definitely a huge culture shock, but more so in a sense, I would say just the language and the way the school systems were, the education, the curriculum, it was completely different. So coming, like I said, over to the States, I was just in a completely different mindset of education and where I was when I did come over.
Yeah, I feel like so much of the teen years are kind of that dance between still having childhood rules applied to you by adults, like you have no agency, but you're at a time in your life where you're figuring out that those rules are arbitrary sometimes, and that you're very much moving into making your own choices. I could see that not going well coming back from like, what do you mean it's 21 now? No, you just moved that goalpost. There's no reason for this.
Yeah.
Trust me, we were fine. I was right over there. We were drinking. It's fine.
Yeah.
Did you find? I could see that making you into a really rebellious kid that could get into a lot of trouble if you're not careful. Did you find sports and acting and creative outlets helped you? Find something to do that didn't land you in juvie in American high school?
Of course, yeah, and in a sense of getting in trouble, I've never really been a troublemaker at all, but it's just those common cultural differences that completely changed in a matter of an airplane ticket over from Germany to the States. But keeping myself busy was always soccer for me. I had training 5 days a week. I played professional for Red Bull Leipzig for 2 years, and the reason I did move over to the States was for soccer. But going throughout high school, I played on a youth academy team that competed against like LA Galaxy, all these huge MLS youth teams. And from there, I ended up getting some scholarship Division I's to West Point, Appalachian State University. And right around then is when acting really kind of caught my attention, and it was my sole focus, and I knew it was my calling. So dropping all of that and being able to completely focus on like my first plays and then some independent films that I did years ago and it leading all up to kind of the momentum I have right now. So just keeping myself busy was definitely a big way of culture shock.
Do you remember when you first got that feeling or that jolt of I need to be on stage? This is it. This is the
Oh
feeling for me.
man. Oh yeah. I have a really funny story about this actually. So I remember it was my freshman year of college, and I went to a community college for my first semester, and I transferred over to East Carolina University. And from there, one of my good buddies, there was a casting call, and it was about an hour and a half away. So me and him submitted and did the whole thing, and we ended up going to set. And just being on set, we had such a small role. Experiencing the pre-production, production and post of it all was it was so exciting to me in a sense of story making that I remember leaving that set, and about a month and a half after I left that set, I was watching La La Land in my house, a sophomore in college at the time, and I had a class. I don't remember what class it was. Maybe it was marketing, but I remember watching La La Land and just getting this itch, and just something deep down inside was just calling me. So I went to class that afternoon, and I was in a class of 30 people, and mid-lecture, the professor called on me for something, and I stood up and I looked at the class and I looked at him directly, and I said, "I'm going to Hollywood. I'm packing my bags." And there was numerous of my buddies in that class, and they were all like, "Wait, what?" And the class itself was like, why are you telling us this? And I specifically remember, like, this was yesterday. This was maybe 4 years ago. Leaving that classroom, packing up, leaving my lease, and that next day, moving back home and then moving to Hollywood.
That's great. That is great.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And so I know you've got a role coming up in spring of 2022 on Better Call Saul, and I'm not sure how much you can probably say about it, but obviously that show's just a classic, and I'm sure you probably came up watching Breaking Bad before it and Saul. Can you talk a little bit about the excitement of getting involved in that project? I would think that there'd be a duality of both. This is a great career move, and also get to be on Better Call Saul.
It was definitely some exciting news. We shot back in July out in Albuquerque, and by the way, it is so hot out there. We're shooting in like 115-degree weather. But in a sense of talking too much about my role in the show, I can't say too much just because of all the NDAs and all that stuff. But what I can say is that it was the first time in my career where I was able to use my German. And it was actually my third German audition after reading for American roles for so long. My team started submitting me for some German roles, and it was my third audition, and I booked it and ended up going out there and shooting. And it was just an absolute blast. I had so much fun, and it was really great collabing with the director, Melissa Bernstein, for it. And she's the EP of the show. And it was a really great time. And the way they made me feel on set was extremely professional. And that crew actually from Better Call Saul was the crew that shot Breaking Bad. So those guys' chemistry behind camera was absolutely amazing. They were so quick, so professional, and they knew what they were doing.
That's great. I'm sure that was a great experience.
Yeah.
And one last thing, I love seeing on your biography that you do USO shows. I think most of us probably have like a Bob Hope 50s picture in our head of what USO shows look like. And a couple of years ago, I was talking to the cast and crew of Letterkenny about how shocked they were doing those at the joy of it and how awesome it is. And can you talk a little bit about getting involved with that and what that was like?
Yeah. So back in my I think it was my freshman year of college, I did a fundraiser for the USO. And I went around to restaurants and bars collecting money, and ended up raising over, I can't exactly say what the amount was, but a couple $1,000 given back, to the USO, United Service Organizations. And it was just a great way to be able to give back to the community. it made me feel really good inside, and being able to form those connections was amazing. And my other kind of thing that I'm doing right now is being able to open up about mental health and trying to start some stuff that way. That's a very important topic as well.
Yeah.
So just being able to, spread as much positivity in my communities and wherever I am as I can is really such a big goal for me.
Well, I can't wait to see you in My Boyfriend's Deadly Secret and, of course, Better Call Saul next year. I really enjoyed Freaky as well. We didn't talk about it, but I thought that was a really fun movie. And I think it's probably the thing I know you from, really. But thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you next year.
Yeah.
And we'll go into detail about Saul and all that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a blast. And thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. You too. Bye now.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.